right. Good afternoon, everyone, or at least good afternoon to everyone on the eastern side of the country. Good morning to everyone on the western side. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're really excited about today's webinar, and we have some incredible panelists that we will introduce you to in a moment. I will introduce myself and my co-moderator in a second, or she'll get her to introduce herself. But I just want to say, before we get started, you'll see at the bottom of the screen or the side of the screen, you do have the Q&A button there. We welcome you to add questions throughout the session. We also have a series of questions that have been asked by our candidates in the past that we will get to. And the majority of the session today is a Q&A. So we would love your participation. And to do so, just drop it right in the Q&A area of the Zoom chat. So welcome, I'm Emily Saunders. I'm the director of the Accelerated MBA program. Today we will be speaking very briefly about our 4 MBA programs, as the majority of the focus is on our panelists and the Q&A. I have been at Smith for 7 years now. I'm based out of our Smith, Toronto location, and I'm also a graduate of one of our MBA programs, our executive MBA program, the national program. And then before I pass it over to Gloria, I just want to mention that we are not diving deep into kind of the program elements today. We do many webinars where we do focus on, the student experience, the curriculum, the faculty, all of those important parts of taking an MBA. But today's session is about, women in the MBA and some of the barriers that women uniquely face, and how a lot of our past students and alumni have overcome those barriers. And so that's why today we've invited 4 panelists across our 4 MBA programs to share those experiences with you. And we're really appreciative of them joining us. So with that, I'll quickly pass it over to Gloria to introduce herself.
Thanks, Emily. Hi, everyone. Welcome to our webinar today. And my name is Gloria Saccon, and I am the director of the Executive MBA National Program. I have been very fortunate to be in this position for quite a few years, and this type of event is always a very exciting event, as we are able to welcome back really inspiring alumni to share their stories and inspire the next generation of MBA students. And so a very warm welcome to all of you. I'm based in Kingston on the Queen's University campus, and very privileged to be situated here on the traditional lands of the Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee territory. And every day I am very, very lucky to be able to work, play, and live on these beautiful lands.
And as I mentioned, I am based out of Toronto. We have a beautiful location downtown, about a block from Union Station. And Smith, Toronto is situated on the traditional territory of the Huron-Wendat and the Petun First Nations, the Seneca and the Mississaugas of the Credit River. And I and our whole team here is very grateful to be able to live, learn, and play on these lands. So I would like to talk about the 5 kind of key, there's many things that we could talk about, and I only want to spend 1 to 2 minutes on this, but it's important for us to just highlight some of the key pillars of our 4 MBA programs. And as I mentioned, we have 4, and we will again spend a couple minutes just highlighting what those are. But all 4 of our MBA programs offer these 5 things that I think are really important, and kind of the 5 key reasons why people choose to take a Smith MBA. The first is flexibility. We have 4 unique ways, depending on what your background is or what your current situation allows for. And many of these ways allow you to take the degree from anywhere in the country or even in parts of North America. Of course, they all provide an outstanding learning experience, and our courses are integrated in that they kind of, build on one another throughout the year. And in some cases, depending on the degree, allow you to specialize or allow you to have a global experience. That all of our students, have quite a good learning experience, whether they take the full-time MBA, the executive MBA, or a more accelerated MBA. Also, all 4 of our programs use a team approach, not a group approach. You're put in a team at the beginning of the program, and you work closely with that team throughout the year. And we do our best to place importance on the diversity of those teams so that you can learn from different perspectives, from different industries, from different backgrounds, from different countries, from different parts of Canada. And we provide a lot of support. You're not only given, a career coach, but you have access to executive coaches, to, fit to lead coaches that help you with your mental and physical well-being, as well as a team coach that supports your team throughout the program. And then finally, of course, a huge part of taking an MBA is the network and the connection and the community that you're given. And we make sure that, that's a big part of all 4 of our programs, both as a student and then when you're an alumni of the school. So I keep talking about these 4 MBAs. I'll quickly just give you a very, kind of 30-second spiel of what they are. And we have a representative from each of these MBAs here with us today. The first is the full-time MBA, and it was just ranked first in Canada by the Financial Times, the #1 full-time MBA in Canada, I should say. It is 12 months, it starts in January, and it's offered at our beautiful Queen's University campus in Kingston, Ontario. There are many specializations available via electives, and as I said, it has a January start and it goes on for 12 months. And then the accelerated MBA is also a 12-month program, but it can be taken while you work. So it's for working professionals, but you do need a business undergrad to take it, as it kind of provides you advanced standing, and that's why it is accelerated and why you can take it within 12 months while you continue to work. And you can take it anywhere in Canada, and it also is a January start.
Okay, I'll pick it up from here and share a little bit about our 2 executive MBA programs. We have our national program where students are based right across Canada. It's a 16-month program, and we have an August intake each year. And the common denominator with our executive MBA programs is that everyone has management experience, whether it's managing people or managing projects. So you can imagine that the depth of these conversations will be quite rich and a real focus on peer learning. With the national program, there's an opportunity to attend an international elective at one of our partner schools. And so the theme of globalization or internationalization is very prevalent in the program because we want you to have that experience outside of North America as you are developing those leadership attributes. Our Executive MBA Americas program is in partnership with Cornell in Ithaca, New York. It's an 18-month program, and it's a dual degree program where you earn a Queen's MBA and a Cornell MBA. So if you're looking to work in the US, develop a US network, or work for a multinational, this program may really suit your goals. And students in this program are in Canada, the US, and Latin America, and has a June intake each year. Similarly, that common denominator is the management experience. So that's a little bit about our 4 MBA programs. As Emily mentioned earlier, we do run program-specific webinars all the time. So please, if you're looking to dive deeper, be sure to join us for one of those. This webinar is going to feature 4 successful alumni. All 4 probably thought about some of the things that are on this slide because we know that applicants have barriers to pursuing an MBA. And so what we wanted to do is really showcase role models for you and hear so that you can hear their stories, ask them questions, and really understand how they did it. But these are the 4 factors that come up time and time again by way of what might be a barrier, whether it's lack of female role models, confidence with math skills, balance concerns, work, life, and school. Life becomes complicated once you throw an MBA into the mix. It certainly is very rewarding, but one needs to give consideration to the balance aspect. And then perhaps lack of employer encouragement or engagement. And so we'll talk about these 4 things. And I think what you'll find is that they will naturally come through in the stories of our panelists. So please let me introduce you to our panelists today. Emma is a full-time MBA graduate. Megan is an accelerated MBA graduate. She will officially graduate this spring. She has completed the program. Very exciting. Tamara is a graduate of our EMBA National Program 2021, and Sarah will officially graduate in the spring as well from the Americas program. So panelists, I'm going to ask you to tell a little bit about your story as far as why you wanted to do an MBA. and a little bit about what you're up to professionally, just to get things warmed up. So we'll go in the order of what's on the screen here, starting with Emma.
Thanks, Gloria. So my name is Emma, and I am a graduate of the full-time MBA 2019. As you see on the screen, I'm now a senior director in enterprise strategy at RBC. For me, very much doing the full-time MBA was to make a career pivot. So prior to the MBA, I had a career in fundraising and events management in the nonprofit space. And for me, the MBA was very critical to making the transition into consulting, both externally and now internally.
Thanks, Emma. Over to Megan.
Hi, my name's Megan. As was mentioned, I was a part of the accelerated MBA program. Very happy that a crazy year has come to an end. When they say accelerated, it's also just everything just jam-packed into 12 months, but a great year. So I run my own company. I'm a former Olympic athlete and hockey player. So through my company, I do a lot of public speaking, brand partnerships, and endorsements and that sort of thing. And then I'm also currently now in the broadcasting world. So I'm the color commentator for the Calgary Flames, Sportsnet 960, the Fan Radio, and then I also do some TV work for Sportsnet as well. Doing my MBA, I graduated from the University of Wisconsin with a business degree. I always wanted to do my MBA, but I couldn't because I was too busy with sport, having kids, life, all the things, and then got around to it with an opportunity. Queens has a wonderful partnership with the Canadian Olympic Committee and through Game Plan, which is a program that helps athletes transition into the business world or into the real world post-sport. So I was very lucky to get a scholarship through that. Absolutely jumped at it. Still not entirely sure in the broadcast world. An MBA so far hasn't really been something that I've been able to apply. So I'm looking for other opportunities and just seeing down the road what the MBA can bring.
Hi, everyone. I'm Tamara. I pivoted into the MBA program as I had a very long career path within the higher education industry. And within the industry itself, master's degrees are essential for promotion. So I decided to first take on a different master's degree, quickly found that my love for business is much stronger than doing thesis-based a master's degree in system design, which I began first. So I decided to put that on pause and move into an executive MBA instead, through encouragement of my leadership team at the time. And the context that I was within kind of when I started my MBA is that I had two boys under 18 months old. So very, very small babies, and I was very scared to hop into this, but I knew I needed the extra academic stimulation and to open up my network more so I can pivot out of the higher education industry. And I have successfully done so. So now I'm in an entirely different world in CPP investments, and quite happy with the results that I had as a result of my attendance with the program. Sarah, up to you.
Thanks. My name is Sarah Tino. I'm a learning experience specialist at TD Bank. Before I decided to pursue the MBA, I was working at a tech startup. And after working for most of my career in the education field, I realized that there were some gaps in my knowledge. And so that's really why I decided to pursue the MBA degree, the EMBA. And since then, I've, of course, pivoted to working at TD and quite enjoying it as well. So that's all about me.
Excellent. Okay, thank you all. So I'll encourage attendees to please don't forget to drop your questions in the chat as you think about them so that we can certainly answer them. But panelists, I'm curious if we can start to hear a little bit about any barriers that you overcame to step into an MBA program. The four that Forte Foundation shared with us is the lack of female role models, low confidence for those math skills, the work-life balance concerns, and the lack of employer encouragement. So feel free to come off mute if you'd like to speak to one or a few of those. Emma, over to you.
Sure, I'm happy to get started. So for me, absolutely, the lack of math skills was one, particularly coming from a non-engineering, non-business, non-analytics background. So certainly, the idea of even having to do the GMATs was quite daunting, let alone how would I do in the program. So certainly relied on tutors to get me through the GMAT. But then I think once I hit the program, a lot of those concerns go away. One, because Queen's does a great job of almost crash courses before you start of here's the basics of math, here's the basics of economics, really get you up to speed before the program starts. But then two, that team structure. So we spoke about the diversity of teams, and it's absolutely true both from a skill set and a background perspective. And having that diversity within the teams means you have peer coaches all the time. So where you might be weaker in math, somebody's absolutely going to be very strong there. But there were skills that I had that perhaps others didn't have, like project management or stakeholder or communications. So I think once you get to the program, the teachers, your peers will really help you develop any of those weak areas and help you get through that program with success.
I would echo those points as well. For me, an additional barrier, I do come from a political science background for my undergraduate degree. I have always been on the tech side, so I have some sense of analytics or had some sense of analytics before the MBA, which have vastly improved since. But yes, that was also a big barrier, the math. I haven't taken math since high school, and it was quite daunting. But what I found is that my baseline of what my math skills were versus what they actually were much better. Once I was challenged to actually go forward with my application and through some of the competency tests that I had to go through to prove my capacity in those domains. So I found that with some good discipline, I was able to master them quite fine individually as well, without any additional supports. And then found that I had continued support throughout the program as well. The additional barrier that I was mostly concerned with, especially coming from higher education industry, is that my alternative was a free master's degree, and because of my employment with a university at the time. And it was quite daunting to think of investing $100,000 plus into an 18-month degree. But through the financing options available, I found that actually quite appealing. It worked well. It actually was not as daunting in the end as I thought it would be. And the opportunities that I received since completing my degree and during my national MBA, EMBA program, I was actually able to work in consulting in tandem through my academic work and regain some of the costs that I had associated with the degree as a result of consulting work that I was able to obtain through the degree program. So that was a nice bonus to have through the MyTex programs offered at Queen's.
Yeah, I think for me, going in, to be honest, there was a pretty big lack of confidence of I didn't know if I could complete the program or if I could do it. And for a number of reasons. I would say the first is that I'd been out of school for 16 years. So graduated from university in 2007, hadn't taken any courses or anything like that. So I found, an MBA program, it's intimidating and it's daunting and it's scary. And the other reason I didn't know I could do it, I had a lot going on in my life. So I was still playing hockey with the Canadian national women's team, knew that I was going to be making a career transition during my time in the MBA. I have 2 kids, an 8-year-old and a 5-year-old. My husband works full time. We had no family in town. So just, a lot of challenges in that I had a lot going on in my life. And there was a lot of uncertainty as to what I was going to be doing for work, would I have an income, all the things. And I know we all deal with uncertainties and challenges like that. But what I found with the program, and I mean what I found through my whole athletic career, is we're often capable of so much more than we think we are. So I kept that in mind going into the program. I was like, this is scary. But if it scares you, that's often a good thing. So those were things that I kept in mind going into the program. And it was challenging, but also extremely rewarding. And I would also say the team component of the program was massive and critical and crucial in me getting through the program, because we had a really good team dynamic. Everyone was extremely supportive of one another. And that's the beauty of a team. When one person, 1 week, like my kids were sick, and then I got sick, and we had an assignment due, and someone else picked up the slack for me, and I did it for others at other times. So that was the great thing about the team dynamic, is that you're all there to support one another. And then I would also say the support of the coaches that you have access to, the life coaches, career coaches. That was a big piece that I leaned on, and was great to have in ensuring that you do, with all the craziness and chaos that goes on around taking an MBA, that you do maintain like some sort of balance in your life. So I would say that's probably the biggest barriers that I face.
For me, I would say that I can echo the family responsibilities. I started the EMBA program when my oldest daughter was 9 months old. And it was tough. It wasn't easy. My husband actually brought our daughter down at the residential session at Queen's, so I could see her, because it was a pretty difficult transition, first time away from her. And now my second daughter will be 9 months old when I graduate the program. So balancing, having children and completing the program, obviously challenging, but I think that you can do everything. I always try and do everything the best I can, and keep everything, I have a certain grade average in mind from past programs that I've been in, or certain things like that. And I think that, people say that you can't have it all. I think that you can. You just need to be organized and motivated in the program. Know that, the program is such a short time in your life to really enjoy it, really, take the time for your learning and your self-improvement, as well as, balancing work and children and all those things.
So I want to dig into that a little bit more, in the sense that I think that this is such a big part of the consideration for women who come into the program. Sarah, having spoken to your program director, Charles, he mentioned that you started a new job relatively early on in the program. Baby number 2 was welcomed during the program. Baby number 1 was growing. You had a lot in the air, and Tamara, 2 young boys when you were in the program, Megan the same. This is a lot. And so the reality of these programs is that they are highly rewarding, and I like to call it short-term pain for long-term gain. But there's a lot of sacrifices that are made along the way to earn this very powerful designation. And so I'm wondering if all of you could share some best practices, given your personal circumstances, just by way of, what you may have even implemented in your worlds to help you really become efficient in this program. Sarah, I'll let you lead off.
Yeah, thanks. So I had very little time for Netflix while I was in the program. So you'll probably find the same. But I think that, joking aside, keeping a good schedule, making sure that I'm using my time wisely. There were sacrifices. I didn't maybe see my friends as often as I'd like because I prioritized seeing family over that. I tried to work ahead in the program wherever possible, especially knowing that my daughter was soon to be born. I made sure to connect with professors, as well as my coach for the program to make sure that they all knew where I was at and what I was trying to accomplish before I was heading off to the hospital. And then working with my team. So someone mentioned this earlier, but you'll have a team, and then determining project leads early on for your projects across your program would be something that would be really important, especially if you know that you have major life changes or work commitments coming up. I took a break around the birth of my second baby from being the project lead, but I actually worked ahead in that area and took on some additional project lead roles before I took a few weeks break from doing that type of work so that I could balance it out. And I also wanted to make sure that my team was set up for success because your team is also counting on you. You're there to support them and they're also there to support you. So I would say those are important things to keep in mind.
All very relatable points, Sarah. I know I think I just weaned my second son from nursing when I began the program, so it was a tough transition for me as well. One of the kind of systems that my partner and I put in place is we blocked a lot of time from perspective of where is my dedicated study time. And my partner knew then that I needed to have a bubble of protection from the kids from that perspective, and have my space at home designated for studying, where I can isolate myself and do the work. We did enlist, we had also very limited family support, but the little support we could enlist, we ensured to tie it to the weekends where we had class on campus on the Toronto location. So, and that way we made a bit of a balance where I would have my class time during Saturday mornings, and then my husband would join me in the afternoon. We would organize babysitting for that evening, and we would have time together as well to ensure that we continue balancing our relationship and keeping us mentally healthy from that perspective as well. So that was a really big piece that we kind of dedicated ourselves to and worked really well. So every other weekend, we knew we had a guaranteed block of time together. And the rest of the time was I've always ensured that I was present when I was present with the kids. And then when I had my block of study time, I completely dedicated to myself. So staying disciplined in that realm was really important. And there were absolutely tough times, but they're not constant. There were ebbs and flows, obviously, of the amount of work that is required. I will be entirely transparent. I think on my final project, I was ready with my hands up, say I give up on the entire thing, and my husband, happily pushed me along to say, no, you have gone this far, you can keep going. So some encouragement and just being transparent and open about where you are, how you're feeling as you're going through the program is, I think, an important practice to put in place so people can support you in a way that you need it. But otherwise, it was very doable, and I'm really happy that my kids grew up alongside of me and watching me doing something exceptionally important for myself and growing from it. I think it's a role model that I'm really happy I was able to play for them. So
Yeah, I would echo like that last comment specifically, Tamara, and that was something that I kept in mind often. And like my kids are a little bit older, and my son, who's 8, he kind of understood a little bit that I was dedicated to school and to working and what I was doing. And so I've always kept in mind that that's really important, is that we're being role models for our kids. So when the mom guilt would start to creep in, I would remind myself of that, and that yes, we're sacrificing time. As Sarah mentioned, you make sacrifices, but those little people they're watching you, and if they're tiny right now for some of us, but down the road, like that's an amazing story that you'll be able to tell them and share with them that is very, very inspiring. One thing, I was pretty lucky that I had a previous experience to kind of lean back on. When I had my son, I made a comeback to the Canadian national team, and he was just 3 months old. So I kind of and I went through a really difficult time in my life at that time. I was dealing with postpartum depression and the pressures of trying to make a national team, coming back from childbirth, and it was a really tough time, and I had to work through a lot. So there were often times, in the program where I kind of leaned on that, and knowing that I'd been through challenging things before, and that I could get through this. If I could get through that, I could get through anything. So for those that have dealt with challenging things in the past, I think it's important to be able to remind yourself that you can do hard things. You've been through challenging times in the past. So just being kind to yourself and reminding yourself that you're strong and that you can do it. Another big thing for me was, and I think that this is really important, not being afraid to ask for help. I think that, and especially as women and as moms, oftentimes we think that we have to do everything and we have to wear all the hats. And so for me, it was little things like outsourcing meals at times. We ended up having my parents come down to help. They weren't in town, but they, if I had a heavy week of school and work, I was really lucky. And I know that I'm fortunate to have had my parents to come down. But I remember I asked a friend one night, we had an assignment due, and I needed someone to come over and watch the kids. So I called one of my friends and she came over and watched. So whatever it may be, just not being afraid to ask for help, because we're not superhumans and we can't do everything at 1,000,000 miles an hour. So not being afraid to ask for help when you can, or when you need it. And then I would say the last thing for me was really making sure that you take time or make time for what's important to you. So Tamara, you were talking about your relationship and making sure you had time for that. For me, exercising is really, really important for my mental and physical health, obviously, but mental health especially. My husband knows that if I don't work out, if I don't get 30 minutes every other day or every day, then I go a little bit crazy. So making sure that I had that time for myself and to prioritize that. So I think it's really being able to recognize what works for you and what's best for you. And that was a key learning for me coming out of the program too, with the schedule and the pressure and the stresses. You really learn a lot about yourself and what you need to prioritize and to do on a daily basis to perform at your best.
Thank you. I want to pick up on that piece, Megan, around really getting to know yourself. And I want to go in the direction of the confidence that you all developed and built while you were in this program. And so I wonder if you could help our attendees understand a little bit more around that. This is a topic that comes up consistently when speaking with alumni of the program, and they comment very early on the confidence that they developed. And so people show up differently. You all are showing up differently. Can you put some context around that to help our attendees understand, what does that mean? What does that look like for you?
I have a very concrete example that I could use. So I work in a very male-dominated industry in the NHL and hockey broadcasting. And every single day I walk into a room and I'm the only female. And I found I've been doing it now for 4 years. And I can honestly say, since getting my MBA, and I said to my husband, I was the only woman in the room again today. And after I finished my last course and figured out that I was officially going to graduate, he said, yeah, you're also the only person in the room with an MBA. And when he put that into perspective for me, like I'm telling you, it pops into my head every once in a while now that I walk into that room and I'm like, yeah, like I have an MBA. So it does, like, it gives you that confidence in knowing that you have that. So that's just a really small but very, very tangible example.
Yeah, I can certainly pick up on that. Doing the full-time program, you realize that you're at a top school, right? And so that certainly for me was a bit of imposter syndrome when you started. But between the coaching, the program is very great about things like making yourself videotape yourself and watching your presentations, which we all hated doing, but it does teach you things. And so I think, Megan, it's exactly that point. It's suddenly you realize that you are the strongest in the room about something, right? That sort of continues to grow throughout the presentation, throughout the whole program of, I really am doing well. And now look at my classmates and I going to get these great jobs after the program. And that I think gives you more confidence too, even just seeing what your classmates are up to and where you land. And certainly, I landed at a top external consulting firm. So certainly was often also the only woman in a room. Or when you fly down to meet a client for the first time and you're supposed to suddenly be the expert with everything. And there's certainly days I still look back and use some of those skills from the Queen's MBA, or even just ways of walking into a room and sort of reading the room and putting yourself at the middle of the table, which certainly would never have done beforehand. So I think the program overall is this very safe space to try out different ways of confidence and really see what fits with yourself, and what works for you, and then how do you bring that to a business setting.
I completely agree with you, Emma, on that as well. For me, overall, I gained a tremendous amount of confidence. I would absolutely echo that. I was really able to also situate some of my mini superpowers that I sometimes had a chip on my shoulder about. For example, I was always tapped at work throughout my career as being someone very organized, but was always provided with those busy tasks to get things moving. And I always felt like I was behind the shadows as a result. So I developed a chip on my shoulder about being pegged as an organized person, because I didn't want to be put into a specific role to shepherd people around. And my executive coach specifically kind of helped me pivot the way I think about my organization's superpower skills and transferred it to leadership and leading teams in more effective ways. And I've now become a lot more vocal about being someone who can really harness the power of an organization because of my ability to really see things from a global kind of perspective and know exactly how all the pieces need to come together for things to work. So I've kind of fallen in love with that. And then one thing that when I started the MBA, my focus was really to become, good at business, if you will, overall strategy, those kind of things. And what I found is that the things that challenged me the most, like the economics, the management analytics courses, things that I cried through, are now my top skills in my my career trajectory and have become an area of my expertise. And it's been quite of a nice surprise to say that, things that I had to, even though I sat through every lecture, I still had to self-teach myself over and over again to figure out how to do. I really flexed my mind to a point where it became intuitive to me entirely. And now I feel completely comfortable in much broader scope than I anticipated that would be. And I think just from feedback that I've received also from my peers and from my partner is they have all told me that since I've done my MBA, I have just blossomed as a person because I felt, or I guess presented so much more confidently to, about my knowledge, where before I always felt like I was the advisor in the background who is writing all the briefs and then someone else is taking the credit for it. So I became a lot more comfortable taking the front stage since I took the MBA for sure.
I can finish it out. I would say that one thing that I've definitely gained is a great deal of knowledge about things that I knew that I was missing, and even about things that I didn't know I was missing. And I think through the courses, just really meaningful discussions with my peers, learning from the wonderful professors in the program, I think it's really just given me the confidence to speak speak a little bit more effectively when in the workplace, but also in conversations that I have with friends or even just conversations that you have casually. I feel much more informed, much more knowledgeable. I know that what I'm saying is correct instead of guessing at sometimes if the terminology I'm using is the right terminology. So I think all of that has really helped me personally.
Excellent. Okay. Thanks to all of you for that. And I just want to pick up something that Tamara mentioned, and that is the blossom piece. You know, Emily and I have the privilege of seeing that with our students over the time that they are with us. And we attract highly successful individuals who are experts in their own space. And this program, our MBA programs, allows people to step out of their comfort zone with the security of a lot of people who are on their side and willing to support them. And that end product definitely is that better version of the professionals that we attract. And so it creates this place where people can truly blossom, gain their confidence, and go off and do really amazing work in various communities, whether it's nonprofit or for-profit organizations. Okay, so let's wrap things up with one piece of advice to our attendees today. Those are the folks that are thinking about stepping into an MBA program, knowing what you know, having had the experience in our program. What's one piece of advice that you would like to leave everyone with today? Sarah, you can start us off.
I'm eager for this one. So I would say, don't be afraid. You can make it happen, and you can make it happen for yourself, but you can also make it happen with the support of the wonderful team at Queen's. I had no idea when I started the program how amazing and supportive everyone at Queen's was going to be, just based on, this is my 4th degree, and I've never had the level of support in a program that I had doing this MBA. My coach Joy was an incredible resource, always going above and beyond to support me, not just in the program, but personally, and willing to talk through things at any time. It was almost unbelievable how much time she had for the students in the program. Charles and Anna, incredibly supportive people if you do the Americas program. They're both wonderful. They were so supportive with the birth of my second baby, went the extra mile to make sure I could still attend classes. The professors, one professor even allowed me to bring my 3-month-old to class so I wouldn't miss out on the residential session, which blew my mind, how accommodating and wonderful he was. I really just can't go on enough about the wonderful folks at Queen's.
Maybe I'll hop on next so we can go in reverse order of the pictures. I would say is, although 18 months feels daunting, the program is incremental. And there are blocks of the effort that you're going through, and once you complete a block, you're moving on. So what you may find is that I try to almost compare it to, since we're all women or women allies in the room, is going through labor. It's progressive. You're progressing through the pain and slowly building the capacity to manage, the final push to actually gaining that degree. So you really, you will find that even though the first couple of months may feel like an adjustment, you will quickly learn to flex those muscles and be able to adjust as you incrementally add different topics and themes throughout the program. And you find yourself quite successful. And by the end of it all, you have all the pieces of the puzzle that help you do that final project for your program. So it's really achievable as long as you really do have to stay. And I say this with, you know, as a person, I've never been an athlete, never been in sports, you know, have kind of gone through school in a way where I just kind of relied on my general smarts. I've never been a very disciplined person, but I learned to be very disciplined through this program. So rely on the discipline and encourage yourself to do something different. If it's not your typical routine to be a super disciplined time schedule person, it's really worthwhile to do that for this. So I'll pass it to Megan.
Yeah, I think like the biggest piece of advice would be to just like, if you're having doubts, just do it. Just go for it. Jump in and do it, because I think, you know, like I said, we're often capable of doing so much more than we think we are. And if it's daunting and if it's scary, then that's a good thing. Because I don't think, like I always say, if it doesn't challenge you, then it doesn't change you. So that would be definitely the biggest piece of advice. And then the other thing, sorry, I'm adding two pieces of advice, would be to just like really open yourself up to the program. And like, it's hard to put this into words, but like, let yourself be open and be vulnerable, and make sure that you create a safe space within your team where you can make mistakes and you can screw up, because that's how you learn. That was one of the biggest things that our team did early on, was just really made sure that it was a safe space, that we could be honest and just share, because we felt like as individuals and as a team, we were going to grow the most and get the most out of the program if we had that space. So that would be the other thing I would say, just like really open yourself up to it and go all in.
So I will echo what others have said. Absolutely, just do it. You know, I think, as you've heard from all of us today, but when I talk to other women, even from my year, no one regrets it, right? It's a life-changing experience. And certainly, you know, if you're doing the full-time program, I'd say throw yourself into it. It's probably the last time you'll ever have a year of not working, right? You're spending time with 80 other people in beautiful Kingston. You've sort of all left your friends and family behind, or your partners have come with you, or your children. But throw yourself into it, be open to all of the experiences. And really, you know, the more you put into it, the more you'll get out of the program, but absolutely just go for it.
Excellent advice. Very, very wise. And so before I turn it to Emily to wrap things up today, I want to personally thank Emma, Megan, Tamara, and Sarah for taking the time to join us, for being so candid and sharing your stories, and for inspiring the next generation of students here at Smith. So thank you all very much. Emily, with that, I will turn it to you.
Thank you, Gloria. And yes, I'd like to echo that. That was incredibly insightful for me. I did my MBA with a 9-month-old, and I wish that I listened to this webinar, but unfortunately it's 4 years too late. But like, just incredible advice. I related with so many things you said, and I just cannot thank you all enough for joining us today. So as we already mentioned, you know, we do program specific webinars for each of our 4 MBA programs. So if you want to learn more about the actual program, just visit the website and go to info sessions, and you can sign up for the next one. We do some in person and we do some online, depending, you know, what works for you. Gloria has shared our emails here. You are more than welcome to email us directly if you have any questions about these programs. And if it's not our program, we will introduce you to the right person. So with that, thank you again, everyone, for joining us. This is one of our favorite webinars of the year. So we really appreciate both the panelists and Alex, who I saw was answering the questions throughout. Alex is one of our app advisors. So if you apply to one of our programs, you may be paired with her, and she will be there to support you throughout the process. So thank you, everyone. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your Wednesday.